For every beloved Rick and Morty character, there are always the ones that makes us want to smash our phone. Today, we're comparing them head to head, starting with a character who barely appears in the show but has fans going crazy whenever he's in it. Evil Morty. The Morty who managed to rewire the entire universe. And he did it with nothing but an eye patch and rock-hard determination. The first time we see Evil Morty is in close Rick counters of the Rick kind, where he is seen with Evil Rick, who was initially suspected as the puppet master behind the murder of several Ricks. Then that's where the reveal hits hard. Turns out, Evil Morty was the one controlling Evil Rick using his eye patch. Oh hell nah, there's gotta be a better way than sticking wires inside of your eye socket. But what makes this reveal so shocking is that it flipped the show's golden rule on its head. Mortys are supposed to be weak, scared, and dependent on their Ricks. But here's a Morty who's not only smarter than his Rick, he managed to outsmart every other Rick in the multiverse. Evil Morty walks away at the end of the episode and leaves his dead Rick behind. You can feel the pure aura pouring out of him. And as he walks into the crowd of Morty, it's the last time we're gonna see him in a while. Until the Ricklantis mix-up, where we see him running for the presidential candidate and actually winning it, turning the Citadel into his playground. This episode led fans speculating on what is the ultimate plan of Evil Morty, and we don't see his grand plan for another 2 seasons after that in Rick Morai Jack. Evil Morty reveals to our Rick and Morty that he is planning to escape the central finite curve, basically a cosmic fence that keeps universes where Rick is not the smartest person in the universe. He's not trying to kill all the Ricks, he's not trying to beat them. Evil Morty just wants to escape to other universes where Ricks don't matter. Can we agree that Evil Morty is the best character by far? His dark aura, the golden portals, and the music theme somehow makes me feel so close to this character. This guy gets it. Evil Morty's music theme, especially the one that happens when he escaped the central finite curve, was amazing. It almost brought tears into my eyes. Evil Morty, while not being necessarily evil, was an apologetic character, and fans love him for it. When are we gonna see him again? No one knows. But one thing is for sure, that thousands of people are waiting for another major comeback from Evil Morty. But while Evil Morty barely appears and people love him, the Lighthouse Keeper only appears once, but is labeled as one of the most insufferable characters in the whole series. On the episode Look Who's Purging Now, Rick and Morty visit a planet during their purge night. Yeah, purge, you know, like the movies. They managed to get their vehicle and portal gun stolen from them and needed to use the lighthouse to send a beacon back to Earth. That is where they meet the Lighthouse Keeper, who lets them set up a beacon with just one condition.
I will let you use my lighthouse for shelter and beacon sending on the condition that you listen to my tale.
Okay, deal!
Oh, they're not ready for what is about to come next. While Rick is setting up a beacon for them to get back home, Morty is stuck hearing his terrible screenplay.
Fade in. Exterior, unnamed city, day. The hustle and bustle is a symphony of
Oh my god, someone please stop this dude. The problem with the Lighthouse Keeper isn't just that he's annoying, it's that he represents the worst kind of creative person. He writes this generic script about a woman that is described as hot but doesn't know it. I don't even know where the hell is he going with that. And after the story was finished, the Lighthouse Keeper asked about genuine feedback from Morty and literally told him to not hold back on him. But of course, this happens.
I feel like, we should start our stories where they begin, not start them where they get interested.
Get out.
As expected, the Lighthouse Keeper is infuriatingly hypocritical. He claims he wants honest feedback, but he just wants validation and praise. The moment someone comments on just something to improve his work, he becomes abusive and threatening to others. It all ends with the Lighthouse Keeper trying to kick Rick and Morty out of his lighthouse. Morty couldn't take any more of this guy, swiftly pushes him down the stairs, ending his tale, if you know what I mean. Some fans even remarked that the scene was one of their favorites in the series. Couldn't agree more. But next up, now it's the time to talk about one of the most genuinely beloved characters in Rick and Morty, Birdperson. This stoic bird warrior represents something really rare in Rick's life. A true, loyal friend who's seen Rick at his worst and still cares about him. Birdperson first appears in Rick's Sea Business, where Rick throws a massive party that gets out of control. While everyone else is getting crazy, Birdperson just stands there calmly. He's this mysterious figure who clearly has history with Rick.
Oh, there's an emergency, all right. Emergency? When's the last time you got laid, Purrs?
It has been a challenging mating season for Birdperson.
One hell of a friendship, huh? In the Wedding Scrunchers, we learn that their friendship is pretty amazing. Birdperson and Rick actually fought together in the rebellion against the Galactic Federation. They were war buddies, going through life and death situations together. But what makes Birdperson special isn't just their shared history, it's how he treats Rick in the present. While everyone else fears Rick or gets frustrated with him, Birdperson just accepts him. He doesn't try to change Rick or judge him. He's just there, solid and reliable. The wedding episode shows us just how much this friendship means to Rick. I mean, it meant so much for Rick that he literally gave a speech during the wedding.
Hi everybody, I'm Rick.
Okay, maybe the whole speech wasn't perfect, but Rick did finish the speech strong.
Here's the thing, Birdperson is my best friend. And if he loves Tammy, well, then I love Tammy too.
This was one of the few times we see Rick being genuinely sincere and emotional. You can tell this relationship is sacred to Rick. Then comes the betrayal. His bride reveals she's a Federation agent, and Birdperson gets shot down at his own wedding. The look on Rick's face when his best friend dies is absolutely heartbreaking. It's pure grief and rage, and it drives Rick to turn himself to save his family. But the story doesn't end there. In the episode Forgetting Sarah Morchow, we learn that Rick has been working to bring Birdperson back to life. He's been trying to restore Birdperson's memories and personality from his brain scans. Birdperson represents the possibility that Rick can have a healthy relationship. He proves that Rick is capable of loyalty, sacrifice, and genuine love. In a show where most relationships are toxic or complicated, Rick and Birdperson's friendship stands out as something pure and meaningful. Fans love Birdperson because he brings out the best in Rick, without judging him for his worst qualities. He's the friend everyone wishes they could be, and the friend everyone wishes they could have. But if Birdperson shows us Rick's capacity for friendship, our next character shows us how that capacity can be horribly violated. Now let's dive into one of Rick and Morty's biggest writing acid trips, King Tommy. This guy represents everything wrong with trying to be edgy just for the sake of it. He just does this pure gross out content that makes you cringe every time you hear his name. So a little backstory for you guys that aren't familiar. Tommy was Beth's childhood friend. Beth invited him to join her in a magical realm called Fruipyland that Rick made for her. She then accidentally pushed him into a honey pit, trapping him for eternity in that dimension. Of course, it's a complete accident. When Beth remembered about Tommy, she and Rick quickly traveled back into Fruipyland and discovered something completely horrifying. Tommy actually survived. He has turned into an adult, and I think he got a brain injury sometime in his life. But hey, he survived. Now some of you might wonder, how did Tommy survive all these years? Did he hunt all the fauna in the land? Oh boy, brace yourself for this one. Tommy became a cannibal. Wait, not just any cannibal, he ate his own children, which he made with the Fruipyland fauna. Alright, close the curtains first. Puke it out everybody, it's okay, pass around the bucket, come on. Cause as a matter of fact, we are not even halfway through the video. It's okay, everybody good? Alright, open back up the curtains please. Oh, that reminds me, if you've been enjoying our video so far, please take a minute to scroll down to subscribe to our channel. It really means a lot for us. Alright, moving on. I really hate what Tommy does to the Fruipyland people. This whole episode was insane. What kind of person thinks of this storyline in their heads and puts it on the television for all to see their up thoughts? Thoroughly enjoyed it. Would watch it again for sure. Not gonna question it. Let's just hope he didn't watch the episode with just one hand. So yeah, although it was for survival, what Tommy did was plain disgusting. But now, if you're a true Rick and Morty fan, if you know just one quote from Rick and Morty, it's probably this one.
I'm Mr. Meeseeks! Look at me!
Mr. Meeseeks managed to become a cultural phenomenon from just one episode, and there's a brilliant reason why this blue creature captured everyone's heart and nightmares. In the episode, Rick gives the family a Meeseeks box that creates these helpful blue creatures. Each Meeseeks exists for one purpose, to complete a task and then disappear forever. Sounds simple and innocent, right? That's exactly what makes this concept so genius. This episode shows us how this simple thing can go horribly wrong. Beth asks her Meeseeks to help her become a more complete woman, an easy philosophical task that can be resolved nicely. well, maybe a bit too nice. Summer wants to be popular at school. A bit harder, but her Meeseeks manages it and disappears happily. Then, of course, we get to Jerry. Jerry wants to take 2 strokes off his golf game. Golf is hard, really hard, so hard that Jerry's Meeseeks starts to suffer as the task drags on. The longer Meeseeks exist, the more painful it becomes for them. What started as a cheerful helper becomes increasingly desperate and unhinged when Jerry proves to be completely hopeless at golf. More Meeseeks get summoned to help. Soon, we have an army of increasingly desperate Meeseeks, all suffering because Jerry can't improve his golf swing. They start arguing with each other, forming factions, and eventually decide that killing Jerry would be easier than teaching him golf. Fans don't just love Mr. Meeseeks for the dark philosophy. The character design is so unique that some fans start to speculate what is the best thing to do with a Meeseeks. Like this Reddit thread, let's take a look at some of the response. Something simple like help me take a couple strokes off my golf game. Ah yes, like how Jerry did it. Let's see the reply to it. I'd use him to get a cup. Whoa, alright, let's end it there. You guys get the point. Our next character is also famous among the fans, or should I say infamous. Massively infamous. That's right, we need to talk about Mr. Jellybean. And honestly, this is going to be really uncomfortable. So buckle up, this is a wild one. Mr. Jellybean appears when Rick and Morty visit a fantasy dimension full of medieval villages and fairy tale creatures. Morty was excited to go on an adventure until they stumbled inside of a tavern because Morty needed to take a leak. Inside, he found Mr. Jellybean. It started innocently though, with Mr. Jellybean giving Morty a couple words of encouragement until it all went to hell.
Bye!
Oh no, stay! Go with the flow!
Stop!
The whole scene doesn't cut away or make it ambiguous. The assault scene is brutal and traumatic. Morty is clearly terrified and in pain, struggling against someone much larger and stronger than him. The scene goes on for what feels like forever, and is genuinely difficult to watch. Morty manages to fight back and escape, but he's clearly traumatized by what happened. He's shaken and scared, and when Rick asks what's wrong, Morty can't even explain it. Rick clearly noticed the stress in Morty's behavior, tries to take his mind out of it, finishing the adventure with a good ending by distributing money to the poor, which actually brings a smile for Morty. The villagers are so happy, they want to introduce Rick and Morty to the king, which was Mr. Jellybean. So Rick and Morty quickly escape back to home, and in a wholesome twist of event, Rick snuck a shot to Mr. Jellybean, ending his reign. Thank God. What makes Mr. Jellybean so disturbing is how realistic he is. He's not some over-the-top cartoon villain. He's a predator who hides behind a position of respect and authority. The way he targets Morty and tries to use his power to silence him is exactly how real predators operate. There is not a single joke around this scene, and there should be none. Viewers of the episode resort to skipping the scene altogether because of the realism and the uneasiness of it all. That was a really dark one. Let's move on to something much more wholesome. A character who proves that sometimes the best mysteries are the ones that never get solved. Meet Mr. Poopybutthole. This weird little yellow creature has won fans' heart through pure wholesomeness. Or let's be honest here, maybe you just like him because of his name. Mr. Poopybutthole first appears in Total Recall, and he immediately breaks every rule the episode established. The Smith family is being invaded by memory parasites that implant false memories of themselves. The only way to identify these parasites is that they can only create pleasant memories.
What the hell? I figured it out, Rick! The parasites can only create pleasant memories. I know you're real because I have a ton of bad memories with you.
Throughout the episode, we see Mr. Poopybutthole in various flashbacks in the family. According to the episode's logic, he should definitely be a parasite because of all his memories are positive. When the family finally starts shooting the suspected parasites, Beth turns the gun on Mr. Poopybutthole. It seems like the obvious choice. He fits all the criteria for being a fake memory, so she shoots him. And yeah, we all thought he was 100% going to be a parasite, but he doesn't dissolve. The family realizes with horror they've shot an innocent friend, and us, the audience, realizes we've been completely fooled. We wanted Beth to shoot him as much as she did, but this is what makes Mr. Poopybutthole truly special. In the post-credit scene, we see him recovering in the hospital, going through physical therapy, and slowly getting his life back. And he's not angry. He doesn't blame the family or seek revenge. He just hopes they can all move on from this unfortunate incident. I mean, come on. After literally getting shot, Mr. Poopybutthole has all the rights to be angry and have revenge and all. But of course, he lets it go and just wanted some alone time. But who is Mr. Poopybutthole? Where did he come from? How long has he known the family? The show never explains any of this, and that's exactly the point. Sometimes a weird character is, well, just a weird character. His periodic appearances between seasons have become a beloved tradition by fans. Kind of feels like getting letters from an old friend. But if Mr. Poopybutthole represents innocence, our next character represents the corruption of innocence in the worst possible way. Okay, you might remember when I say his bride reveals she's a Federation agent and Birdperson gets shot down at his own wedding. Yeah, we're talking about her, Tammy the bride from hell. When Tammy first appears and gets shrifty, she seems completely harmless. She's just this bubbly teenage girl who somehow ends up dating Birdperson. Yes, that's right. It is very weird that a high school student is in a relationship with an ancient bird warrior. But this is Rick and Morty. It's the least of your worry. Tammy appears to make Birdperson happy, which is enough for most fans. Seeing him with someone who brings joy to his life feels good. Then the ball drops during their wedding. Tammy reveals that her relationship with Birdperson was a lie, a long-term undercover operation to capture Rick and his rebel friends. Within seconds, Federation troops storm the wedding, and Birdperson gets shot down by his own wife. Tammy didn't just trick some random target, she spent months or possibly years building a relationship with Birdperson, making him fall in love with her, so she could destroy him and his friends at the moment when they felt most safe and happy. The look on Birdperson's face when he realizes what's happening is heartbreaking. This ancient warrior who survived countless battles gets taken down by the person he trusted most. Fans have never forgiven Tammy for this betrayal, and honestly, we as the viewers probably never will. She represents the violation of trust in the most cruel form. Using someone's love as a weapon against them, it's pretty messed up, dude. So now let's swing back to a character who shows us what growth and development can look like. Not like Tammy right over here. And yup, I'm talking about Morty. You see, Morty wasn't always the character he is today. He starts this series as this nervous, stuttering 14-year-old who just wanted to go to school, talk to girls, and live a normal teenage life. Instead, Rick keeps dragging him on these terrifying adventures across the multiverse. Early Morty spends most of his time complaining, panicking, and begging to go home. But here's the thing about constant exposure to interdimensional chaos. It changes you. All those near-death experiences, all those encounters with alien civilizations, all that exposure to Rick's awful worldview started shaping Morty into something different. He became more confident, more capable, and most importantly, most willing to challenge Rick. One of the first signs of Morty's growth comes in Rick's minutes. When he talks his sister Summer out of running away, Morty explains how he and Rick accidentally destroyed the original dimension and had to move to a new reality where they died. It's a heavy conversation that shows Morty developing his own philosophy about meaning and family. And in season 4 and beyond, Morty is handling Rick's technology, making his own decisions, and even going on solo adventures. He's not the same scared kid who needed Rick to save him all the time. He's become genuinely competent and self-reliant. What fans love most about Morty is that he's developed his own moral compass. While Rick wants to ignore the consequences of their actions, Morty is the one who speaks up when they've gone too far. The relationship between Rick and Morty has evolved from grandfather and victim to something more like equals. Morty can now call Rick out of his behavior and even outsmart Rick when necessary. Fans love watching Morty become more confident and capable while still maintaining his essential decency. He's becoming his own person, and that person is someone worth rooting for. Morty is my favorite character in any cartoon ever made. I wish he could be happy. Me too, bud. Me too. So yeah, if Morty represents the positive growth, our next character represents the frustrating inconsistency. I know, Summer Smith. Summer Smith occupies a weird position in Rick and Morty. She's not universally despised like some characters on this list, but she's definitely the most divisive main character in the show. The fan base is split right down the middle on Summer, and that division itself is part of what lands her on the hate list. You see, the main problem with Summer is the inconsistent writing. Sometimes she's portrayed as this intelligent, capable character who inherited Rick's genius. She can hack alien technology, manipulate situations to her advantage, and hold her own in dangerous scenarios. When Summer is written this way, she's actually pretty compelling. But then other episodes portray her as a stereotypical bratty teenager who makes everything about herself. She whines about her problems, acts entitled and selfish, and seems to exist mainly to create conflict for other characters. You see, this version of Summer is annoying and hard to relate to, and it also didn't help that she was working with the devil. Yeah, literally.
Everything's free, right? Let's just say you don't pay with money.
That was perfect.
What really frustrates fans is how Summer sometimes hijacks episodes that should be about other characters. The show is literally called Rick and Morty, but Summer will insert herself into their adventures in ways that feel forced. It's like the writers couldn't figure out what to do with her, so they just made her part of everything. Summer also suffers from what fans call main character syndrome. She acts like she's the most important person in every situation, even when she's clearly isn't. This attitude can work when she's being confident and taking charge, but other times, and most times, it comes across as entitled and obnoxious. But when Summer is written well, where she's generally clever and resourceful, she can be great, but when she's written poorly, she drags down the entire episode. That inconsistency is what makes her so divisive among fans. Some fans see Summer's potential and appreciate her stronger moments. Others focus on her weaker episodes and find her annoying. Both sides have valid points, which is exactly the problem. Summer could be a great character if the writing was more consistent. Okay, moving on, it's time to talk about a character who proves that sometimes one perfect episode is all you need to achieve immortality.
I turned myself into a pickle, Morty! I'm Pickle Rick!
Sometimes a single episode becomes so iconic that it defines entire series. Season 3, Episode 3, Pickle Rick, is the episode of Rick and Morty, and the character himself has transcended the show to become a genuinely cultural phenomenon. The setup for Pickle Rick sounds absolutely ridiculous. Rick literally turns himself into a pickle on his workbench, claiming it's just a random experiment, but it's pretty obvious he's doing it to avoid going to family therapy with Beth, Summer, and Morty. The family leaves him there as a pickle, thinking he'll figure out how to change back. What happens next transforms a silly side gag into one of the most creative and violent action sequences in animated television. Rick gets knocked into the sewer system and finds himself completely hopeless, just a pickle with no way to move or defend himself. But this is Rick Sanchez we're talking about. Using his tongue and some spit, Rick manages to kill a cockroach and uses its leg to build himself crude limbs. Then he kills a rat and upgrades to a better body. The action scenes that follow are absolutely incredible. Pickle Rick fights trained government assassins, taking down an entire facility full of enemies, all while being a pickle with makeshift body parts. And of course, we can't forget Jaguar. Fun fact, Danny Trejo is the one who voiced Jaguar. But what makes Pickle Rick truly brilliant is how it works as a metaphor. While Rick is literally fighting for survival as a tiny pickle, his family is at therapy dealing with the emotional damage Rick has caused. The episode manages to balance Rick's reliance on crass humor and broad gags with a genuine emotional depth, making it both entertaining and meaningful. The therapy scenes with Dr. Wong are some of the most insightful moments in the entire series. She calls out Rick's behavior patterns, explains how his action affects his family, and forces everyone to confront the real problems in their relationship. These scenes provide the emotional weight that makes Pickle Rick more than just an action sequence. The episode won an Emmy for Outstanding Animated Program, and it's easy to see why. The episode spawned a fandom within itself, with countless memes, iconic quotes, and a plethora of popular merchandise. For many fans, Pickle Rick represents Rick and Morty at its absolute peak, combining absurd humor, incredible action, deep character work, and meaningful themes all in one episode. It's the perfect example of how the show can take the most ridiculous concept and turn it into something profound. But if Pickle Rick shows us Rick at his most resourceful and entertaining, our final character shows us Rick's universe at its most frustrating and pathetic. Here we are, Jerry Smith, the character that many fans dislike because they perceive him as weak, needy, and stupid. Fans hate him, well, because he's literally the opposite of Rick, and fans love Rick. Jerry represents everything that Rick and Morty fans cannot stand. Let's start with the most basic problem. Jerry is unemployed for most of the series, but act like it's everyone else's fault. In the pilot episode, we learn he works at an advertising agency, but he gets fired and spends the rest of the series bouncing between random jobs or just being unemployed entirely. He constantly attempts to find a career to no avail, leaving his wife Beth to be the breadwinner of the family. But Jerry doesn't just accept his unemployment, he actively resents Beth for being successful. In the episode Rick Potion number 9, when Rick accidentally turns most of humanity into Cronenberg monsters, Jerry's main concern isn't survival or helping his family. His main concern is proving that Beth needs him. Yep, even during an apocalypse, Jerry makes it about his ego. Jerry's pattern of self-pity continues throughout the series. The separation arc in season 3 shifts should have been Jerry's chance to grow. Instead, he spends most of it feeling sorry for himself and trying to make Beth feel guilty for leaving him. What makes Jerry truly insufferable is his complete lack of self-awareness. Rick may be cruel and selfish, but at least he knows what he is. Jerry thinks he's a good person who's been unfairly treated by life, when really he's just as toxic as everyone else in the family, but without any redeeming qualities to balance it out. Jerry often finds himself ending as the butt of every joke, but that doesn't mean his negative reputation isn't warranted. He represents the worst kind of person, someone who demands sympathy and support while contributing nothing and taking no responsibility for their own problems. Oh my god, yeah, that's exactly why Jerry is probably the worst human in the show. I would literally slap the center of attention bitch if he exists in real life. In a show full of complex, flawed characters, Jerry stands out as simply unacceptable. Jesus, I hate that guy. And finally, we arrive at Rick Sanchez himself, the smartest man in the universe, the most dangerous person across infinite realities, and somehow, despite being an absolute monster at times, he defines Rick and Morty and keeps fans coming back for more. Rick is, by any objective measure, a terrible person. He's an alcoholic, a narcissist, emotionally abusive to his family, and completely indifferent to the suffering he causes across the multiverse. He's destroyed countless civilizations, abandoned multiple versions of his family, and treats everyone around him like disposable tools for his amusement. So why do fans love him? Because Rick Sanchez is the most compelling anti-hero in modern animation. He's not just smart, he's so intelligent that conventional morality becomes meaningless to him. When you can travel to infinite realities and see infinite versions of every person you know, traditional concepts of consequences and responsibility breaks down. Rick's origin story, revealed in the Rick Shank Redemption, shows us that he wasn't always this way. The death of his wife and daughter Diane at the hands of another Rick broke something fundamental in him. He spent decades hunting down his family's killer, becoming the monster he started out fighting against. What makes Rick fascinating is that he's fully aware of what he's become. In autoerotic assimilation, Rick's attempt after unity, Rick's lover, that is also a hive mind, leaves him, shows that beneath all his arrogance and cruelty, he knows he's poison to everyone around him. He hates himself as much as he hates everything else, and Rick was the embodiment of nihilism. If nothing matters, then why try to be good? Why care about consequences when you can just portal to a reality where those consequences don't exist? Rick's intelligence has become a curse that prevents him from finding meaning in anything. The genius of Rick's character is how the show uses his omnipotence to explore themes of depression, addiction, and family dysfunction. Rick can solve any scientific problem, but he can't fix his relationship or find happiness. All his power is useless against the fundamental human problems that actually matter. Rick Sanchez works as a character because he's simultaneously the best and worst person in the Rick and Morty universe. He's a walking contradiction, a man who claims nothing matters while caring deeply about the few things that do matter to him. Fans love Rick because he represents the fantasy of being smart enough and powerful enough to do whatever they want, but also the reality of how empty and meaningless that kind of existence becomes. He's aspirational and cautionary at the same time. Rick Sanchez is Rick and Morty. Without him, the show is just another family sitcom. With him, it becomes an exploration of intelligence, morality, family, and the search for meaning in an infinite universe. Love him or hate him, Rick is impossible to ignore, and that's exactly what makes him the most compelling character in the series. And that's a wrap. If you enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribe. We're a really new channel and we have tons of new videos for you guys to enjoy. And hey, if you managed to watch till the end, comment Noob is the best character in Rick and Morty and confuse the hell out of other viewers. Till then, click here to watch more. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next Rick and Morty video.